So here to tell us all about our LinkedIn strategy is the very lovely Sophie Turnton and Alice Reeves of The Joyful.
Thank you, Rifa. Hi, everybody. I'm Sophie, and this is Alice.
Hi.
And we are from The Joyful. And today we're going to talk about LinkedIn, which is actually weirdly quite a contentious social media platform, at least in our experience. I think there's probably not one single business person I've ever met or worked with that doesn't have an opinion about LinkedIn. For me, it's kind of a combination of like intriguing and confusing. On the one hand, feels like a very valuable place to be, a really good place to meet lots of new people, to broaden your network, to get seen by lots of different people across different networks. And on the other side, it feels quite confusing. The platform changes its layout quite a lot and doesn't really feel that user friendly. So hopefully today we're going to kind of give you some overview and give you some insights into how to make it less confusing and work better for you. So welcome to How to Get the Most from LinkedIn. We are The Joyful. We are a brand and marketing company and we like to say that we're for movers, shakers and change makers. And what that really means is that we work with businesses that are doing more than simply selling a product or service. We help businesses to grow their mission, to build communities, and to really make a positive difference in the world. I'm Sophie, and this is my business partner, Alice, and I'll be passing over to her shortly. So, why establish yourself on LinkedIn? So we've got some stats just to set the scene for those of you that are just like, no, I hate LinkedIn and I don't really see the point in it. While on the one hand, I do understand exactly what you mean, LinkedIn saw a 55% increase in conversations among connections last year, which isn't surprising given the fact that we've all been online, but it does really show the value of using a platform like LinkedIn to get networking when we can't do so in person. Content creation on LinkedIn increased by 60% in 2020. And more than that, I've really seen a change in the trend of the type of content that's been put out there, which we'll look at a little bit more, but it seems to now have changed to being a lot more about showcasing somebody's personality rather than just being really kind of formal, business-like. And if after this, I invite you to have a look at The Joyful's social media in general, and you'll see that we are not the kind of business that really subscribes to that kind of overly professional veneer. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity for all of us. 33% of B2B decision makers use LinkedIn to research purchases. And LinkedIn had 6 billion content impressions in 2020, which was 15 times more content impressions than job postings. And the context of that is that it was once a platform that was really used by recruiters a lot. I'm sure many of us have had the experience of being approached on LinkedIn by a recruiter who is looking to kind of either poach or to get an idea of what you're up to. And this has changed massively to becoming more of a social network like Facebook and Facebook and Instagram, where we're talking a lot more about who we are and what we stand for. 4 out of 5 people on LinkedIn are decision makers, which is a massive, massive opportunity. And companies that post weekly on LinkedIn see a 2 times higher engagement rate. And massive disclosure on this, though, because Alice and I were having a conversation just before coming on, and we're a marketing agency, so we do this a lot for our clients. Yet we were like, man, we really need to start using LinkedIn more. So if you're looking at this and thinking like, oh God, like, how am I going to have time to be posting weekly? Like, what am I even going to talk about? We completely understand. And that's kind of one of the main reasons that we're here today, is to give some easy ways to do that doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. So why do that? Like, what's the point? Like, if we're not posting about jobs, if we're not talking about our very, very professional selves, like, why would we use it, and how could we use it that would really showcase the difference amongst all of this noise? So the reason really is thought leadership. And, you know, not to teach you to suck eggs, but there is quite a lot of confusion around what the definition of thought leadership is amongst the industry. And it can be kind of bandied around in marketing a little bit as a sort of marketing jargon type thing to get clients to buy from you. So I just wanted to give you a real overview of what we mean when we talk about LinkedIn, thought leadership on LinkedIn. And that is content that organizations or individuals produce on a topic in their area of expertise to demonstrate their knowledge, share their unique perspective, and position themselves as an expert. And I don't just mean, for example, for us, you know, we're experts in marketing. I don't just mean talking about marketing in a generic way that would, you know, show that we understand marketing. We're marketing agencies, so really the expectation should be that we know something about marketing. Thought leadership goes even further than that, and it's really about having a unique perspective on your specific area of expertise. So for us at The Joyful, we talk an awful lot about the importance of valuable, impact-led, purpose-driven marketing, which is all about having conversations with communities, building communities, getting them involved in telling the story. So that's our position when we talk about marketing that will set us apart and show that that's our kind of unique thought leadership angle. And again, there's a lot more that we could be doing with that. And there's a lot of opportunities that we all could be using LinkedIn for to showcase that. So why thought leadership? I found a really interesting article that I've put the link to in this presentation that we'll send out to you at the end by Edelman and LinkedIn, which shows that B2B marketers seriously underestimate the impact of thought leadership. And again, I think it's because it's a word that's been thrown around so much that it's almost lost its meaning, or that people misunderstand the importance of doing it with a real sense of authenticity. As someone in the chat said earlier, it doesn't feel very authentic when you're on LinkedIn. It doesn't feel very authentic when you're on a lot of social media platforms these days, I think, especially for businesses. So we underestimate the impact of thought leadership. Yet 54% of decision makers in Europe said that they use thought leadership as an important way to vet organizations they're considering working with. So they're looking for that. They're really looking for a way to understand a business and its leaders as different from all of the competition, which again, it sounds obvious because we all kind of know that we need to differentiate ourselves, but maybe we don't all know how to do it or exactly the way that our unique perspective is important. And yet only 25% of sellers expect thought leadership to help them close a business. So there's this really interesting divide going on whereby decision makers are looking for it, but sales teams are underestimating it. So, you know, while there's that sweet spot, there's a huge opportunity for us to kind of get in there and really make an impact by having a voice and getting it seen by our potential customers. And only 14% of thought leaders, decision makers rate the thought leadership they encounter as excellent or very good, which again, in a world where we're just creating content constantly, that just shows how important it is to create valuable, authentic, insightful, and, you know, having a say that's different from everything else that's out there in your content. So I'm going to pass it over to Alice, who's going to give a bit more of an overview of how we can structure our content and structure our LinkedIn pages for optimum impact.
Hi, yeah. So over to me for a little bit of housekeeping. So we are always proponents of making sure that we lay solid foundations for success whenever we're making content recommendations to clients. And one of the first things that we always go to is look and see, are the LinkedIn channels, the company pages, the personal profiles of your thought leaders, are they optimized? So we wanted to, I won't go into too much detail here because you'll get the presentation, but we wanted to provide a checklist that you can go down to make sure that you have the basic setup, that your company page and your personal profiles are set up for success and have as much information as possible. So the first thing is making sure that there's a profile photo and that it's appropriate. So if you're a business, you want that to be your logo. Have a branded cover image that tells people more about your business. So including any taglines, logos, a photo of you. Make sure that looks really professional and it reflects your branding. Underneath your name, making sure that your tagline is updated. You've got 120 characters to give people the kind of distilled essence of who you are and what you do. You can also customize your page URL to make sure that it's your company name and not just this swathe of numbers. That little button that you can see that on ours says visit website, there are a whole bunch of ways you can customize that button to have it most appropriate for your business. So visit website goes to our website, contact us, might take you through to a contact form or a phone number. People can register for something, sign up for something, whatever is the most appropriate call to action for your product or service, you can set that button to. And then you also get a 2,000 character about section. So make sure that you're aligning that to the about page on your website to ensure consistency in your messaging across all channels. Next slide, please. Then when you go into the settings, you'll see that you get this menu. So what you want to be doing is going through this menu and making sure all of your page information is up to date, including you've got the right website, the right contact info, that the location of your business is accurate. You can have 3 hashtags to associate with your page, and we'll come more onto hashtags later. So you want to be looking at whichever hashtags are popular and are relevant to your product or service. And you can do things like set featured groups, languages, set your specialities, all that sort of thing. So you want to be going through all of those, that checklist that you can see on the left, and just making sure that you've completed all of the relevant sections. And then just a note on employee advocacy. If you have a team, use them to leverage to use their professional networks to increase the reach of the content you're putting out on your business page. So like a lot of social networks, LinkedIn wants companies to pay for advertising. So it limits the amount of reach that content just shared to your company page is going to achieve. So if you have a team, encourage them to be sharing content from your page, from your website, to their personal networks. If you have a larger team, it's a really good idea to set up some kind of employee advocacy program focused specifically on LinkedIn, offering training, and perhaps incentivizing it, particularly for those that have a role in driving new business. And then the next bit is your personal profile. So in exactly the same way as you want to optimize your company page, you as a business owner, any thought leaders within your organization also want to ensure that your profile is optimized. So what we do at The Joyful is we've provided cover images. We had like different colors and slightly different patterns so people could pick the one they wanted, that are branded, that showcase what The Joyful does. We love a photo shoot, me and Sophie. We're always organising photo shoots. We love getting our team involved, and they can be really fun and a really, really easy way to refresh your social media and your website content. So making sure that your whole team have those really high quality professional headshots is really important. And like your company page, you also get an about section, which is the chance for you to highlight your experience, your passions, why you do what you do, and have people get to know you as someone that they really want to connect and do business with. And then again, if you kind of just go down your profile, you'll see there are all of these different sections you can update and fill in. So making sure that your education and any qualifications are up to date. Even if you've done like little online trainings like the HubSpot, the HubSpot agency partner certification, the HubSpot Academy for marketing, and I'm sure there's equivalent, plenty of equivalents in other industries. You might have just done a few online courses and not realize you can actually list them as certifications on your profile. So every time you gain a qualification, it's worth searching for that. You can add your skills, you can request endorsements of your skills from connections, and you'll probably find, I never will just sit down and go, oh, you know what, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to find people and I'm going to write them some great recommendations. But every time a connection messages me and says, please, will you write me a recommendation? I will. So be proactive and request recommendations from your connections, because they will again back your professional expertise, and that all supports establishing you as a thought leader who can be trusted and who's an expert.
So that's a little bit of housekeeping, and now you understand the importance of really sort of using the platform to showcase who you are and what you're about, and that sort of unique spot in the middle where you have an opportunity to make a difference. How can we use LinkedIn's features that do seem really quite confusing to a lot of people to really get our thought leadership and our opinions and our profiles out there? LinkedIn has some amazing features, and of all of the platforms, the social media platforms, it has one of the best algorithms as well, because you're showing up to second and third tier connections through the content that you share that is engaged with by those people's connections. So again, it's all about listening to what your audience are caring about and talking about and getting involved in conversations, and just making sure that the content that you're producing is really on point to what people want to engage with, so that they engage with it. And you can put content out in a number of ways, such as on articles, which I think is one of the more obvious ones that many of us know about. And only individuals can publish these rather than being published on a company page. And really, we would suggest that you use your individual page for your own LinkedIn building, and then reshare it through your business anyway. You can use newsletters, which are a really great way of alerting your subscribers. I mean, LinkedIn used to be amazing because every time you posted an article, it would tell everybody that you'd done it. Those days are gone. So now it's a really good way of, you can use a newsletter to populate all of the articles that you're putting up there if you're doing it regularly, which will then alert the subscribers, your subscribers, that you've done that. And then if they engage with it, again, it alerts their contacts, and even their contacts even further than that. You can do live broadcasts through streams, which have increased by 437% in the last year, after the feature was launched the year before. Though this feature is still restricted and you do have to apply, it is a really great way of reaching more audiences, and is worth looking into and worth taking a little bit of extra time to go through the application process. And you can use stories now as well, which are 20 seconds long. They last for 24 hours, and they can be uploaded from a mobile app. And again, this is a great way of really kind of building on your thought leadership around a specific topic that you might have an idea or a thought about that you just want to share in that moment. Using a platform's new features can mean you have more visibility within the algorithms, as there's less competition and the channel wants to encourage adoption of new features. And actually, one of the things that makes LinkedIn quite confusing is that they are quite regularly updating their features, and they often roll them out over quite a long period of time. So actually being kind of aware of and setting up maybe some Google notifications that will tell you when LinkedIn has had an update on its features, so you can get on there first and be one of the first ones to use it, could really, really help boost your visibility. So get creative with what you share. And I mentioned this earlier about how we as a business are really quite bored of the stuffy approach to business that seems to have been pervasive up until maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. And LinkedIn used to be that kind of very, very stuffy professional sort of platform. But now it really doesn't need to be that way. And instead, you can have fun with what you put out there. You can really experiment with your individual tone of voice. It doesn't have to just be about your business's tone of voice, as this is an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself as a thought leader and a leader of your business. So create a content plan that focuses on the core topics and angles you want to be known for. Think about who you're talking to, what you want to say to them, what you want them to do with that message, what they care about as well. Like, this is also an opportunity for social listening and really understanding your audience, how you want to communicate it, and why should they care? Why are you talking about this? Explore your voice as a thought leader. Content that shows your personality and talks directly to your audience as individuals will have far higher reach and engagement. Don't be afraid to have an opinion, which is what will make you a thought leader in the first place. And, you know, you can experiment with it as well and just see what kind of messages resonate and what maybe don't resonate so much. Comment on and engage with other posts in your field. Alice has a saying, which is that this is what makes social media social and not just media, is that it's about reciprocation. So we can't just expect that people are going to engage with us if we're not prepared to engage with them. But never be spammy. Don't just write random comments on things that don't actually have anything to do with what you're talking about and are only about promoting yourself. And then use video as much as you possibly can. This is an amazing way for you to show your personality. It doesn't have to be amazingly well polished. It really can be it can be raw and authentic and a great way to get across who you are and what you stand for. And again, have a bit of fun with it. It doesn't have to be serious just because it's a business platform.
And then finally, once you're creating all of this content, you want to make sure that it stands the best chance of being seen. So some kind of quick, some kind of very, very simple tactics you can use here are, first of all, tagging other people and company pages whenever it makes sense to do so. So I've included this like epic example from WiredSussex here, where they've literally gone through their Christmas party and tagged every individual speaking, every company speaking. Then I've shared it and I've tagged WiredSussex and I've tagged Sophie and I've tagged Reefa. So basically when you tag someone in an update, they get notified about it, which means, oh, someone's tagged me in a post. They'll go and they'll have a look and they're much more likely to engage. The post or comment becomes associated with the profile of the person you've tagged, meaning their contacts might be alerted to the fact they've been tagged in something, particularly if it attracts a lot of engagement. And then, of course, anyone can click on a person's name or a profile and navigate to their profiles. So if, for example, you're sharing blog posts written by your colleagues and your connections, tagging them is a really great way to build their profile and increase their visibility. And then finally, hashtags. People love to just stick hashtags in anywhere and then tell me how confused they are about how hashtags work. So I wanted to keep it really simple. Basically, hashtags are important because they're a way of categorizing content. So industry professionals can follow any hashtag they want in order to keep up to date with trends and information relevant to that hashtag. So the first thing you want to do is not use hashtags that just have millions and millions of followers, because your content's going to get lost in the noise. Equally, you don't want to use hashtags that only like 5 people are following, because no one's going to see your content. So in this example, I've kind of had a balance. I've taken a punt at digital marketing with 27 million followers. It's probably going to get lost in that. Digital marketing jobs, a bit more specific, 22,000. That stands a good chance of it being visible. Marketing jobs, 4,000. Again, even less noise. And then really specific digital marketing job, 281. So just to kind of show that mix, you want to be making sure that you're both using hashtags for visibility and for specificity. If you click through on any hashtag on LinkedIn, you might have to jump through a few posts first, but eventually you'll get to a screen that gives you the hashtag and the number of people following it. So what I do is I just have an Excel spreadsheet and I make a note of popular hashtags that I know work for me and that have a decent following. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions? Vicky. Going back to your point about tone of voice, can the tone of voice be different on the company page to the individuals in the business, or should there be some consistency? That's a great question, Vicky. My take on that is that the individuals, it's their opportunity to be a thought leader within their own right. So my tone of voice on my LinkedIn, for example, is very different from Alice's tone of voice on her LinkedIn, is very different from the Joyful's tone of voice overall. And I think the reason for that is that, again, it's not that you're necessarily making your business the thought leader. You're making your individual self the thought leader, and people resonate more with people. So I would say have fun with it for yourself rather than trying to be too much like the business.
Yeah. And I think as well, coming back to authenticity, you know, you want to be talking on LinkedIn in the same way you talk when you're out networking. You know, you want people's experience of you to be consistent. And if you're like giving it all bells and whistles, blah, 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 blah on LinkedIn, and then you meet someone and you're actually quite like reserved and professional, that's going to be a disconnect. So, you know, you've got to be consistency. You've got to be consistent to yourself and find your authentic voice. And I also just want to differentiate between that consistency and tone of voice and having a social media policy. If you have a lot of people who are thought leaders within your organization, I would make sure that you all agree on a set of basic guidelines in terms of this is the stance of the business. These are things we absolutely do not say, and these are things that we do say, just to make sure that no one is overtly contradicting a brand perspective or the recommendations that you'd make to your clients.
Oh, there's loads of questions. So what's the relative value of connections and followers?
The relative value of connections and followers. So connections essentially means that you have accepted a connection request with someone, which means you can reciprocate and message them, and you know, you are connected and you have accepted that person into your network. Followers is you can follow someone without necessarily connecting with them, which means you may not be able to message them directly or contact them or see their contact details, all of that kind of thing, but their public content will appear in your feed. So followers, if you're putting out a lot of thought leadership content and building your profile as a thought leader, lots of followers is great because people will see your content, but connections is kind of that extra step of like letting them in. And if you are a person with millions of followers, you might not want to have like millions of people who can also message you all the time on LinkedIn. And you can set visibility from your posts as well. So you can say, you know, some posts are public, which means anyone and everyone can see it, but some posts are connection only and that sort of thing. So it's more about kind of privacy levels. But, you know, if you've got lots of followers, then that is good because you're popular and your content's more likely to be seen by people.
And to that note, there's just a kind of follow-up question about accepting connections you don't know at all. I personally do, but I'm always discerning about it. So I look at who that person is, and as soon as somebody sends me some kind of spammy sales message, sometimes also trying to sell me my own products, I'm like, no, probably not somebody that I necessarily need in my connection list. So again, it really is up to you and to be discerning about.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Ben says, it's about asking what value can you bring to each other. A connection really should be about mutual value.
Yeah.
So there's a really interesting question on here from Daryl Wilcox, which is asking, from an SEO perspective, with duplicate content on LinkedIn articles and elsewhere, e.g. company blog, is it okay to put a piece of content onto your LinkedIn blog and also have it on your company blog without there being any SEO conflict? At least my understanding of this, the last time I looked into it, which was probably about a year ago, is that there is no issue with that, as long as, and my kind of way of always doing it is that I put at the bottom of that blog on LinkedIn where the original blog is and then link back to the original blog. Although I would encourage you to check that because things change with LinkedIn so regularly. But the last time that I looked into that, there was no issue. And Sandra has asked, for the newsletter, do you use articles as the newsletter on LinkedIn, or do you mean an external MailChimp newsletter? So there is a facility on LinkedIn to create a newsletter. So you have to have created an article on the platform already, and then you can populate all of that into a newsletter.
Yeah.
And once you send it out, we'll notify your subscribers that you have created a newsletter.
Yeah, and that's only for LinkedIn articles. So it's, you know, this is if you are writing a series of regular articles on a specific topic within LinkedIn, people can subscribe and be alerted to when there is a new article in that series.
Yeah, exactly. And my understanding is that you can only have one newsletter at a time. So what you can populate the newsletter and continue to update it. But if you want another one, you will lose that one and you create another one. So Ben has asked, what's a good posting schedule? I mean, a lot of businesses will say that you need to do it every day. I would say a couple of times a week is totally fine.
I would even go far as to say, Ben, a good posting schedule is one that works for you, given the time and resources that you have, that still allows you to create quality, well thought out content. So for you, a good posting schedule might be once a week. For someone else, a good posting schedule might be once a day. You've got to be realistic with the time and resources you have that allows you to actually consider and put thought into your content rather than putting stuff out. In terms of how often you should do thought leadership versus more direct promotion, that will depend on how your audience respond. You know, if every time you put out a thought leadership post, you get 100 engagements, and every time you put out a direct promotion thing, you get 10 engagements, you probably want to do more thought leadership. But you know, if you have an audience who is extremely receptive to your direct promotion, then do more of that. So you know, it's all about looking at the insights from your post and seeing what your audience respond the best to and what gets you the most results.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, again, that comes back to Javet's question about thought leadership following as opposed to speaking simply to my existing connections. When you're putting thought leadership out there, you are speaking to your connections. Like the kind of real key thing with thought leadership is that it's not just about you having an opinion and what you want to say and broadcasting. It's about creating opportunities for conversations around something that you believe will make an impact to your audiences. So it is always about coming back to who is in your network, who is in your community, what do they care about, and how can you create value for them through what you care about too. And that feels like a lovely thing to end on this Wednesday morn.
Thank you so much, Alice and Sophie. That was so interesting. And thank you very much to Plus Accounting again for sponsoring this event. Thank you all so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.